Welcome to Another Triathlon podcast brought to you by Mana Apparel. I'm joined this week by Josh. Unfortunately, Fede couldn't make it, but we're going to dive into everything going on in the triathlon world right now. Now, while we don't have any races going on, there is always plenty of triathlon gossip and fun going on. So we will chat through everything with our social media post, What the F, and a bit of triathlon tea this week and just see where the conversation goes. But to start off, we will catch up with Josh, who I was a bit jealous looking at your Instagram this week. Tell us where you've been, what you've been up to.
Well, it's been a couple weeks since we recorded, so just been busy training, and it was all normal, building some volume, getting ready for Oceanside, and really just getting that base going, and then had an opportunity to pop down to Puerto Rico for a week. One of my coach's athletes lives part-time there. He's born and raised there and lives in New York most of the time. He has an Airbnb that wasn't being used and he was going down. So it's a 3-bedroom and we had an opportunity to join him. So thank you, Jimmy, for having us down, and really awesome location right in Isla Verde, like right off the airport, real close to San Juan Airport, and access to 2 different beaches and overlooking the water, amazing views, amazing apartment. And then it was just really making a lot of connections and going to work meant triathlon. And it was for the first time.
Not a bad way to go.
Really, it was just swim, bike, run. A lot of lactate testing. My finger probably needs a Band-Aid or 2, but got pricked a bunch. And it was a really eye-opening week too, because I haven't been doing a lot of VO2 or threshold work since the marathons last fall. So with that, though, everything that we have been building since I got tested over a year ago in Arizona has really paid off. And there were times where I had to sit and like walk around and wait until my lactate dropped below 3 just to go to the next session and go again. And this time it was like, it took a while to get it up above 3 and on the track. And I ran all 3 sessions. I barely had to wait in between, and finally got to the pace where we knew with the threshold. And I think I came in with like a 3.8 or a 4, and then the all out was a 6.8 when I finished. So I was like, all right, well, we did it right. And I think the 6.8 went up to like a 10 by the time, and then it came back down, because after you finish a lactate test, usually the lactate keeps building.
Yeah, for a while
some
after.
of our audience might not know, and then you have to find it when it comes back down. So all of that was way better than it was in Arizona a year plus. So all that work that we've done for a year now has really paid off, and the body's responded, and went from there right to the pool. I was like, I got to do 3,000 yards after this, and did that. And we get to experience this really cool facility that they have in San Juan and all over the island. There's a bunch of the facilities called natatoriums, and it was the way it was set up this week was 3 25-meter pools, one direction, and then 25s back to back, which could be broken into a full 50. So they've got 75 meters of pool, plus a diving platform and water polo and full stadium seating. And it's just really, really epic, and really, really cool to do that. So we swam. I think we got a pass. So we were told we probably wouldn't be able to get in without a doctor's note, and potentially it'd be some trouble. And we got there and we got in, and they looked at our paperwork and they're like, that might not be the right one. We'll just fill it out real quick. Did that, took our names, and they're like, all right, hop in the pool and do 50. So we did 50 meters. They're like, okay, you're good to go. And they gave us a 3-day pass, and we didn't pay. It was like, I don't understand. We paid $2 to get into the park with the car, but other than that, it was like, so we had a 3-day pass to this pool and went every day and swam 3K, and just really awesome experience to be a part of something like that. And then the only question was, where were we going to bike? Because we were told that the biking on the island was not as safe. We knew that we had some stuff planned with the triathlon community there on Saturday and Sunday that we'd be able to do like a long group ride. And then on Sunday, we were going to do a pretty much a mini triathlon, half Ironman, and the roads are closed on Sunday. So that we knew. Well, we got there to this beach called Punta Salina, and it was absolutely epic. We swam, we ran, we did some strength on the beach, and then we got on our bikes and we went out, and it was about a 8 to 10 mile stretch that we rode down and back on, and it was some of the nicest roads I've ever been on. And it was rolling-ish, but it was tailwind out. headwind back. And I think the least amount of wind we had one day was maybe 12. And the last lap we did on the 56-mile ride we did on Sunday, coming back was about 15 to 25 gusts above that. And it was full on headwind, and it was amazing to see. And I averaged in 56 miles, I still averaged 20 miles an hour on a day I wasn't pushing. It was don't go over 190 normalized power. So I had the average normalized power on my computer all day long. And I think I finished at 188 or
Right at the end. Yeah. It sounds like you're dealing with some hot temperatures too, some Kona conditions.
Yeah, it was typically this time of year, and I lived in the Virgin Islands, which is a 20-minute flight away. Typically this time of year, you do get the winds, they call them the Christmas winds, and then the temperatures are pretty low down there being high 70s, low 80s. The week we were just there, it was pushing 88, 90 Fahrenheit, and the humidity was 70 plus every morning and pretty intense. So I think I got like 24% heat acclimation on the first run I did, and it was like a half hour, 45-minute run outside. So
By
yes,
fire.
I was 100% heat acclimated according to Garmin within 4 days. But it started to show too, and because who knows what that actually means, but by Saturday or Sunday, and I got there on Monday, by Saturday or Sunday, I could feel different, and I could see my body sweating and getting out all of the heat, and all of a sudden paces became easier, heart rate started dropping, and was able to really put in some good efforts. And it really came through after we didn't do a full swim. We did about 1,200 yards in the open water that morning, and we got there, and I had a flat. I knew I had a staple in my tire from Saturday, and it was fine on Saturday when we rode. And then I got there Sunday morning, and it wouldn't pump. And I was like, all right, got to change that out. In the pitch dark at 6:15 in the morning, and on an island where she's like, so got that done. So that was cool. And it wasn't really anything official. Like we weren't doing a race, but it was a whole group of like 20 of us that were getting in the water and then going on a bike and then going on a road. And got in the water, did 1,200. We took our time doing a transition and got on the bike and did 56 miles. And to only push 190 and still come out with a 20-mile-an-hour average was really, really cool to see, with Oceanside coming up in 9 weeks, less than now, and able to come off of that and then run 4 miles off the bike with no problem, and running into like 25, 30 mile an hour winds at this point and crosswinds. And it was pretty epic. But yeah, I felt really good. Position, I was in aero 98% of that 56 miles. Yeah. And they had a Gatorade station at the end of each loop. And it was, the way they set it up is this closed road was 5 miles out, 5 miles back. And we've been running that same stretch. So I knew it well. And there must have been 350, 450 people out there biking, running, hand cyclists, fat tire bikes, people with motorized bikes, pacing people who were training, and then a few of their top end age groupers and a future pro triathlete out there flying. But one thing, there's no non-drafting rules and things like that. But I felt like I was riding alone the whole time. And I was riding 19 to 21 miles an hour, but obviously way more than that on the way out and a little less than that on the way back and pushing into the headwind. But on one lap, I think it was my last full lap out. So the last one with tailwind going out. So my fifth lap, because they reached 10 loops. So fifth lap, somebody hopped on my tire as I went by a group of 4 road cyclists, and he literally hopped on my tire. It was like usually you could like somewhat see a shout out, or you could kind of feel that they're there. Like, I think I could hear this guy breathing. He was that tight. So I was like, all right, well, he wants to go, so I can't let up. All right, sorry, coach, I'm going to have to go over 190. I think each lap, each 5 miles was like around 14.5 to 15.5, depending on which direction. That one was like, I got to the end and it was 12:20. And I was like, we were flying, and I think I hit just over 30 miles an hour on the way out. And probably averaged about 215, 220 normalized power. So it was really cool. And then I get to the end and I'm like, all right, well, maybe he's going to take a turn and pull coming back against the headwind. No, he didn't even stay on my tire. He was like, screw this.
Just gone. There's something about that when someone like hops on your tire and they don't, it's kind of courtesy a little bit to ask or kind of interact with the person a little bit beforehand. But I have done that so many times where someone just like hops on the back of your tire and you're just like, well, now I have to go. Or even worse is if they do try to take a pull at the front and then slow way down and you're just like, come
You're
on.
not working like I did. I wanted that extra speed too, but we had been working on it all week and staying aero and taking turns between the three of us riding, and my coach and I especially, and working on trying to stay aero and really at 10 to 12 meters and work off of what we're going to be riding in. So it was really, really neat to experience in that, but just being around that whole atmosphere, I just had so much dopamine just like riding with all these people out there on a Sunday in a closed road atmosphere in such really cool weather and like hand cyclists flying in this temperature. It was almost like being in a race at an Ironman because you had all walks of life, all ages, and it was just really neat. And we were told we might not be able to ride while we were down there, and my coach brought her trainer, which we used for my lactate testing. So I got
easier way to do that for sure.
Yeah. Man, and that last 3 minute all out on the bike on the trainers, pretty crazy with the lactate testing. So that went really well too. Way better than last year, and still didn't swim lactate test. We were trying to keep them down, and I did one 400, got out of the pool, lactate tested myself, and it was like 7-9. I'm like, yeah, still not ready to be lactate tested on the pool, but my swimming is way better, and we know that. And now and it was a over 20-hour week, which I mean, I don't think I'd been anywhere over 16 really. And so for the body to handle it, and then today went and hopped in the pool for another 3,400 and still have a little bit of a run to do tonight. So body responded. I'm really excited, and just found out yesterday that I was registered officially for Oceanside, and I am officially going to be registering for the Boston Marathon tomorrow. So
wicked.
Got
All
that
the race dreams are coming
official news. Literally, as I got on the plane to come home yesterday, I got all of this at the same time. So
you're already on a high of the big week.
Yeah, Oceanside April 5th, and then the marathon on April 20th.
Well, that'll be epic. But it goes to speak to that you felt so good on such a big training week, bigger than you typically do. The difference when you kind of take real life and like all those work and all those the house obligations, all of that stuff out, and you can just kind of eat, sleep, train, recover. It makes a massive difference on the energy it takes to do something like a 20-hour training week.
Yeah. And it was really neat too. And there was a lot of work that I was doing on the side when we weren't training, but the recovering, the nutrition that we talked about, like my wife and I are going to really clean all that up at home because we're right there at a level where like, why not? And our lives have gotten so much better with the extra training that we've been doing. So why not go that next step and just eat a little cleaner and sleep a little better and recover better? I mean, I had some good recovery scores on. It was the biggest week yet, but if you are scared of a big volume week, don't be. It's just, you got to do it under a controlled environment and don't just go from 8 hours to 20. But
yeah, and don't do the big volume weeks on top of a stressful life week and big work week.
Very, very true.
All that stuff makes it much harder.
Yeah, it was definitely a big week, and it was and I got a lot of work done in terms of career stuff and all that's looking up and about. So a lot of opportunities going on, and really excited about it.
Oh, that's wicked though. I'm so happy to hear you finally got confirmation on the Oceanside and the Boston. It's always harder training for a race when you don't know for sure you're in, right?
And neither one of them are going to be A races. So it wasn't like, oh, I need to know for sure and we got to tackle it. Like Oceanside, this will be my third year in a row doing it. It's going to be, I know I should be able to go faster. I know I should be able to come in with a better time on a good day, but it's not going to be an A race. And I think that's important to keep Oregon as that and Chicago as that. And then the Boston Marathon, hopefully just find somebody that I can pace to their PR and leave it at that. 'Cause there's no way in heck I'm going to be ready for a PR at Boston.
You're doing it my style. Jump into a race. Just
right?
go do it.
with my longest run being about 9 or 10 miles right now.
You're right on track.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing what my wife is doing every weekend, no, I'm not. But we'll get to the finish line.
Yeah, but that's the fun part. You've been putting in so much training over the last couple of years here that you have that foundation now where you can just go
Always be
do
ready.
that, right? That's it. Like a few years ago, could you ever imagine you're like, well, there's a marathon in what, 12 weeks or something? I'm just going to go jump in, start training now for it.
Now, how about your training in your week? You've got 140.6 miles to get ready for. How's that going?
It's going good. Yeah, you know what? The last couple years, training was kind of on the back burner and work was a little bit more of a focus. And it has been so much fun since Kona. Training has been full on and just feeling good. Have been able to focus on it a little bit more, balance out life a little bit better. And it's come to the point where I start to feel like actually fit, like start to see some familiar numbers that I have years ago when I was training a lot more hardcore and stuff. And that is just the biggest motivator when it's like, okay, I can still do this. If I put in the time, it's still good. So it's been a ton of fun the last little while, just starting to get over that hump where you can actually see the fitness coming through, which is a good place to be. I started to introduce, so I was doing some big volume weeks. Now I'm kind of alternating volume with intensity. And that's one thing I think is always good to remind athletes. If you are building up the volume and you kind of switch over to more intensity, the volume has to come down a little bit to be able to incorporate that intensity, or else you're just going to burn yourself out so quickly. I've seen athletes make that mistake in the past. They're like, okay, I'm up to, 18-hour training weeks. And it's all been aerobic in zone 2. Next week, I'm going to do a couple VO2 sessions or threshold sessions, but still keep it at that high volume. So always a good thing to remember, if you are increasing the intensity, volume has to go down a little bit. As much as you want to hold on to those gains, and I know it's hard to let go of, you won't get the most out of either of them. That's why we have those zones, because triathletes are really bad at going hard. It's not hard enough to get into that VO2 and threshold, but it's not easy enough to build that aerobic foundation. They're always just kind of in between, which just kind of burns you out and doesn't make the most of either of those. So this was a good reminder, throwing in some of that hard stuff that the volume does need to go back down to take advantage of it. Just finished some VO2 work, which not my favorite, but the cool thing was, after really not having done intensity on the bike for probably the last 5-6 months, all of that volume has set the foundation that it actually felt pretty solid and the numbers were good. So that was really fun to see that coming back and just kind of haven't completely flattened the legs with the volume, we'll say. No, it's been good to just kind of have some fun with it.
The more I thought about it last week too, I was like, man, if Jenna could be down here training right now, it'd be like, and even my coach, like she's going to try and qualify for Kona at Texas. He's like, she's got to figure out a way to get back down there. And because it's literally, you get a good week like that of weather, it is just spot on without having to travel all the way over to Hawaii or do something similar to that, or heat train in the winter. It was pretty awesome. So it's awesome to hear that your body's responding, going through all of the heck that you're putting it through, and all the different aspects of the ways that you need to train it to get ready for Taiwan. It's pretty impressive.
And I would have much rather been outside for this weekend's training than indoors on the trainer like I was. So typically I did my usual kind of that 12 weeks out. I like to put in a few big bike volume weeks, because the bike is definitely where I make my mark on the race. But usually I'm racing in August, September. So those big bike volume weeks, 12 weeks out, are outside playing in the Rocky Mountains, getting some sunshine. It's snowing, so that's not going to happen this time. So I ended up spending 10 hours on the trainer over 2 days. And I definitely would have much rather been outside, but bundled up, got it done. A lot of time in Zwift, just going around and around in circles. The cool thing was, with just sessions like that, they're a mental and physical grind. But it's one of those things that I think just builds that confidence for Ironman, especially. Because, you kind of have that strength, that endurance, and mentally you could just kind of get through it at the end of the day. So it was good to see the legs were good for that. And then last week, starting to pump up some of the intensity. A lot of the running I've been doing has been on crazy inclines and, again, layers of clothing, heat training. One, mostly for the physiological benefits, but two, for race day has the potential to be 30 plus degrees, or 90, 100 degrees in Fahrenheit. So I actually did a run the other day, and most of the run work has been aerobic, just on inclines and with the heat training. But I did a run the other day on a flat treadmill with no heat, with a fan on. I miss my fan a lot with the fan on. And my zone 2 pace has dropped like over 30 seconds per mile in the last month and a half, 2 months. So it was one of those good kind of check-ins that, okay, that aerobic foundation training, it works. It definitely helps bump that up. And it was almost a case of my legs weren't fast enough to make my heart rate go to the top of zone 2 when I actually had some fans on and not crazy inclines. So if you're ever doubting, if you put in a solid block in zone 2, it can definitely help you get a lot faster at a lower heart rate, which is what you're looking for when it comes to these endurance events. 70.3 Ironman, that zone 2 is still absolutely king.
Let me ask you a question too, because this came up with my coach and even the other athlete that was there too. We kind of were wondering, and it goes back to last December when I was tested. Have you found doing any type of lactate testing in the past where there might be, because we didn't do like a baseline, like when you wake up and test, like what are you at, like static? Are there people that just have a higher bottom lactate? Like, so instead of me waking up with a 0.5 or a 1.0, is there physiological capability of somebody who just wakes up and they're at a 1.8 or a 2, and that's where so is my 3.5 a little different than everyone else's 3.5? And that was the things we didn't look up. I haven't looked it up yet, but just questions that we had because of the way my heart rate reacted and the way I was capable of pushing watts and speed and coming off the bike. And when we tested it during the week, it would be at like 3.6. And I was like, that was a pretty easy effort feeling wise, but the lactate was there. So I wonder if you had ever done any research on that, or is there any different bottom base level?
Yeah, so like anything, when you're talking people's physiology, it definitely varies to a degree. Like if you look at threshold heart rates, if you're going to do those online calculators, they're taking a massive data set and finding the averages. You'll have outliers like a Lionel Sanders, who his threshold is like 20, 30 beats lower than what it should be according to his age, kind of deal. So person to person, there's definitely some variation in there. And lactate's the same. It's probably smaller ranges, but you're definitely going to see those differences between people. Then there are other things that come into play, just the recovery status that can have a big effect on it. Making sure you're testing a lot of times, if you have some sweat on the strips, that can make a very, very big difference in there as well. So it's not easy in a hot condition, especially to get perfect lactate strip tests, but there is definitely some variation between person to person. We're looking at kind of about 4.0 or about 2.0. Like these are benchmarks that kind of make it easier for the everyday person to understand what's going on in there. But if you're to really dive into it with very specific testing with an expert in the field kind of thing, they'd be able to find variations for sure and find what your exact number is, or that crossover point, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we factored in like, all right, you've had a ton of volume, and so going forward, the plan's going to account for, I ran in 85. And we did the testing at like 12:30, 1 p.m. Like it's in the heat of it all. But that was fine. I mean, it still pushed out. One of the other things that I learned too with lactate testing was during the track session, I had a carb drink mix and all that. I was like, no, don't drink that once you start the whole thing. So I guess the carbs can have an impact on the sodium, or the carb actually have an impact on the lactate reading. So try and stick to just water during the actual testing period.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too. Everyone kind of like you don't feel it sometimes with how your body is responding to the lactate. Like when I do lactate threshold testing, I have to have a very long warm up, or else I'll see something like the first step of the test, I'll be kind of moderate. Next step of the test, my lactate goes way up, like 5.0 kind of thing. Even though the effort doesn't feel that hard, that's just how my body responds to it on, well, fatigue legs too, which doesn't help either. But then as I keep going, reset, it'll come back down, and then it'll have that nice curve as you go up. So that's why it's really interesting with lactate. Sometimes it deviates a little bit more from your feel because there are so many factors that can't be taken into account when it comes to lactate testing. It's really interesting. It's something I keep wanting to do more of on my own as like a, test of one, but then it just seems like a lot of work sometimes.
It is a lot of work. And even with 2 or 3 of us doing it this week, it was a lot. And the one we did want to get was my last one after that 190 normalized day. But my coach is like, oh crap, I just used the last one on Jimmy. So
Oh no.
I didn't actually get that reading, which it would have been really interesting to see at the end of a huge week like that. But yeah,
You
and then I did a swim yesterday morning and I ran on a beach. I don't know if I've ever run on a beach to run in shoes. So that was my last run. And the first 20 or so minutes was on the beach. And then I did 10 around the neighborhood and then jumped in a pool and went to the airport.
Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but running on the beach is way overrated. It's just not a good feeling.
Yeah, it's not
pretty.
easy unless you get like a perfectly compact beach and it's like low tide. And no, this was not the greatest, but it felt good on the Achilles after that week.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into what's going on in the triathlon world outside of our own training. There's definitely been a few things going on. Why don't we start with social media posts of the week? Because I think we're going to have some jumping off points to talk about from there.
Yeah, so we've all kind of been seeing the leaks of certain events within the T100 schedule. I think it started with Vancouver, and we saw that at June 13th, 15th. And then they dropped the grand final, which let's fingers crossed, we're actually going to have a grand final this year in Qatar on December 12th to 13th. And
Yeah.
so that's really interesting. And we will have a full season of 8 events leading into that. So now 9 total races starting in Singapore again, and then San Francisco, Vancouver, French Riviera, London, Spain, Lake Las Vegas. So Spain and Lake Las Vegas are still TBA. So we'll go from August 9th, 10th in London to Spain and Lake Las Vegas TBA on the dates, and then Dubai, November 15th, about a month later, December 12th, 13th, T100. So we thought the Ironman Pro Series was a long season last year. This is the exact same thing, but 9 races. So they are now competing head to head more so than ever before. April 5th to 6th, Singapore is the exact same week as Oceanside, a week after South Africa Ironman. So it'll be very interesting to see how the whole wild card situation plays out throughout the year and what athletes really go for it. This is year 2. We're going to start to really see some things, but it's neat to see a schedule laid out, and Spain and French Riviera and Vancouver and Dubai and Qatar joining the list. So let's hope it all works out.
Yeah, and if you look at Dubai, it's only a week after the 70.3 World Championships too, and then they'll have a bit of time before Qatar. So definitely going to be some crossover there. But I feel like this year we are seeing a little bit more of a divide between the between the Ironman Pro Series and the T100. And well, I don't think we really talked too much about the people racing, but T100 has definitely gone short course. Like if you look at this list now, it is short course racing for something that started out as having more representation for long distance triathletes. We're definitely seeing that this distance favors the short course athletes. And you see it within the field too. We have a couple 70.3 specialists. Really, the big names you're seeing in Ironman are like the Lucy Charles, who's going to be racing against a lot of short course athletes. We've got a few others in here, but we're mostly seeing Olympic distance athletes coming through and racing in this. So I think the Ironman Pro Series really did what Ironman set out to do, and that was to get pros to commit a little bit more to their series, because T100, it's just become so specialized. Like you have to be that short, fast racer.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the crossover works this year. I think that's going to be one of the biggest differences that we see. You're not going to have athletes doing both as well as they were able to do this year.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of big names from Ironman distance in the men's side. Like you got Sam Long, but it sounds like he's going to commit really to T100 to go after it. Yeah, all the while.
Sam thinks he can do anything.
Definitely. And then another interesting part too is they've kind of come out with what the pro athletes have to do. So initially we were hearing that they're going to have to do a lot more races because there would be more races for them to do. But it sounds like there was some conflicts with the contract negotiation with pro athletes saying, okay, we're not going to do more for the same or less pay. So something has changed here. So to get people to sign on, they changed it to athletes are going to have to do 4 of the races plus the grand final in Qatar. So 5 races total to get their points to go towards the T100 top rankings in there. Be interested to see as we go kind of who picks and chooses and, like you said, who the wild cards will be jumping in.
And it'll also be interesting to see if they ever get what they are shooting for too, getting these contracted athletes to more and more races. Like you can see where they're trying to get to. They just haven't figured out how to do it contractually yet and get the same level of athlete. So they're going to keep upping the bar, and hopefully I think their goal is T100 becomes an advertiser's dream or a sponsor's dream, like Ironman still is that mecca. And if T100 gets there, I think the organization is going to start to push, okay, now you got to do 6 races next year.
Yeah.
I still don't see that happening anytime soon. I still think we're years away from that actually getting there. But they're gonna try and push the envelope.
And you know, they've really been making strides in the actual broadcasting of the races, and the commentators that they have going in, they are doing fantastic. We saw the last few races of the series there. They really stepped it up and made it something a lot more entertaining to watch, start to get the graphics on screen, the variety of commentators down on the course and up in the studios. They've really made massive strides there. The first couple races, like, oh, this is looking like Ironman or World Triathlon, like it's just nothing special. So it's cool to see they've stepped it up there for sure. But the question is now they're kind of pivoting. Before they weren't going to have age group racing. Now they're pushing heavy on the age group racing side because they're seeing like sponsors want to sell to the people buying the stuff, and that's age groupers. And you see it with a lot of the pro athletes sponsorship contracts too. Ironman is still the event where they're going to get the biggest bonuses that sponsors are most intrigued with or want to spend the money on, because again, that's their direct line to the average age group triathlete. That's who's buying this.
Yeah, absolutely. And the number of events in the Ironman age group world that are already sold out for 2025, that's your answer right there. I mean, 70 point, there's only so many Ironman distance races too. So they know they're getting athletes who are very dedicated to the sport and showing up and spending money on this and finding ways to get to the races. So I know how much money I spend on the sport, and I know there's others that spend more. And so T100 is going to need that age group aspect to it in order for the advertisers.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how they go. The other question will be kind of what the pricing looks like. We're already seeing, I've heard some complaints already that the prices have gone up significantly from last year with the T100 races. And you can see how obviously they need money to sustain it. They're putting out a lot to put on these pro races. But until you kind of have that proof of concept that T100 is something special or an elevated experience, you kind of need to build that trust with the age group athletes. Like people will pay a premium for Oceanside because they know it's going to be this big event, well run. It's tried and tested and true kind of thing. So I know with the few events they've come out, it is a little bit pricier. Curious to see as we have some of these new locations what that looks like, because I don't think they're quite at the point where they can charge a premium or kind of Ironman pricing for it. Especially their initial edict was we're going to make it affordable pricing, but be curious to see if they can get more of the age group buying into it. I think if they do set up some kind of world championship or have something that people are striving for, that definitely makes a big difference. Because right now, you say I've done a T100 race, no one really knows where. So hopefully they can make something epic, and they're definitely making strides with some cool locations to make it fun to watch and hopefully get a little bit more buzz going.
Yeah, I think that they've found their niche in terms of where they want to hold these races, and there's something to it, and there's something there. I mean, and we all know that Jack Kelly at the Triathlon Hour loves his polls and his research, and it does seem a little interesting recently though that it's like, is Jack Kelly their research arm and trying to figure out how much the shift has happened, and then you start to see some of the results in his polls this last week, and it's like, the Kona women almost beat the men in Nice in terms of viewership and what events do you want to watch? And I think the losers in his poll were WTCS and Super Tri, but it was kind of pushing you that way anyways. But in terms of T100 and Ironman, anyone who's watching any of those anyways just wants to watch triathlon. So they're just going to watch it anyways. And then that's us, and that's our listeners. And those are the people showing up to multiple Ironman events a year and getting their bronze or their silver or their gold AWA status. That's what people are looking to advertise with. But it's very interesting to see Jack, who is an announcer for the T100, doing that type of research right now.
Yeah, I think it's half research. A lot of it is Instagram algorithm trying to get the clicks and the views and stuff at the same time too. But
it's all
it is
part of the
interesting
process.
to see. Yeah, it is interesting to see some of the results in there. And it's definitely like we see everywhere, age group triathletes, they skew towards Ironman because that's what they know. And Super Tri is a funny one because it's such a short season that I think people kind of forget about it outside of that 8 weeks that it's running. We have all these other series now are so long throughout like this crazy long season. And then Super Tri is just kind of wedged in there.
I agree. I'm still a huge fan of Super Tri and what it's doing and what it's promoting. It'll be really neat to see who does perform and sign on to Super Tri this year. I know their contracts are really lucrative, so there's a chance to make some good money there. And it'll be interesting to see if there's any changes with the teams this year. But I'm excited for it, and even the E Super Tri coming up soon. I mean, Cassandra's going to be there. They're going to have big names, and people who like triathlon are going to like Super Tri. So I'm not really worried about it.
Yeah. This year, I wonder how WTCS is going to do with viewership because we see all of their big names are doing other things. Like Alex C is running marathons. You got bunch of the athletes are going to be doing T100 or, like you said, Super Tri. And this could be a chance for new names to kind of pop up if they don't have the usual kind of top end people focused on WTCS. But is that going to make people want to watch it less? Because there's a bunch of unknowns. My prediction is this year we're going to see like an epic rise of like Gwen Jorgensen because she's been on the comeback trail and is an awesome athlete. But at the same time, the people she's been competing against a lot of them aren't going to be starting.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is going to be an interesting thing. And they're starting, in a couple of weeks, right, in Dubai? So, and I think and Hayden Wild is on that start list. But after that race, how many of those events is he going to be showing up at? I don't know if he'll be at any others other than the Dubai race. So to be determined there. I think you're spot on, though. It's going to be an interesting season in their calendar.
Yeah, they have some big ones like Taylor Spivey's not going to be there. Kate Waugh, Jess Learmont. Yeah, Hayden Wild, Leo Berger, Vincent Louis, Morgan Pearson. They're all going to be focused on T100. We saw Georgia Taylor Brown. She's focusing on cycling this year, it looks like. So we're not going to be seeing her at the WTCS races. So
yeah, non-Olympic. I mean, there's really no impact to the points, and if we just all take the year off, we're good. We'll just all come back, and then we'll climb the point standings again.
Yeah, jump back into it. So I'm curious. There could be it'll either be a bunch of new names will kind of come through, and we'll get to see some of the upcoming talent, which is always exciting. Or there's going to be a couple solid athletes that just dominate because that top 5 maybe get 1 or 2 showing up to it, and they'll just be miles and miles ahead of everyone.
And there's a positive to all this too, because there are athletes, and obviously Gwen's on the back end of her career, and hopefully I can keep going at it for a little while longer. But there are up and coming athletes that this is how you used to make your career. You started in short course and you worked your way up. This might open an opportunity. This is a great year for those athletes who maybe haven't had the performances, maybe mentally are questioning whether or not they're doing the right thing. And it might only take 1 or 2 good events and good races to literally change their lives and change the trajectory just mentally and the confidence that they can grab from it.
Totally. And that's the exciting part about this. There may be some names you don't recognize, but there's still going to be some epic racing because to those people on course, it means everything.
Exactly.
Well, we'll jump into what the F of the week here. And reading more into this what the F is because this guy just doesn't give an F, really. So we've had the USADA has banned Poland's he's a multiple world record holder in the ultra distance triathlons. He's been banned for 8 years because he failed his not first, second anti-doping test in the last 2 years. So he definitely has had some crazy performances. He's done a lot of the double ultra triathlon, but his biggest one was he did the Deca ultra triathlon, which it was a continuous race, and there's a 38-kilometer swim, 1,800-kilometer bike, and 422-kilometer run, which is absolutely insane. So it sounds like he was caught for doping and he had a couple sanctions with it. But the reason this guy just does not give an F, so he's decided if he's going to be banned from doing official events, he's going to try to set a goal of 150 iron distance races in 150 days. He set a new record. So he's like,
So he's just going to become insta famous.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So it's one, I'm surprised he got popped, like that they caught him, which is very, very good to see that they are kind of testing age groupers. And I'm sure it was one of those cases of people seeing some crazy performances and maybe questioning, but it still sucks to see doping in our sport. Really, especially for an amateur athlete in there, doing these epic challenges is supposed to be about challenging yourself and just doing something crazy that's insane. And you know what? If you got to
Multiple
take drugs
times.
to do it, yeah. I mean, where's the satisfaction in that?
No, go to Puerto Rico and train for 20 plus hours a week and
There
then see
you
it.
go. I mean, these events are insane, like the DECA and stuff, but still,
Yeah.
it's disappointing to hear because I know people get inspired by some of those crazy performances, and to learn that they're doing it with some outside aid is unfortunate, but
Go
thankfully,
listen to our interview with Caroline Livesey and you can see what it's supposed to be about.
exactly. Suffer through, get it done. Man, I just, you know what, I hope if he does go do that 150 distance races, sounds mean, but I hope he doesn't get the attention for it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So it's just, I don't know, just you get popped for doping twice and say, screw it, I'm just going to do my own thing. That it's against everything the spirit of triathlon is about.
I agree. I will not be following it. I have followed the others, the Iron Cowboy and some of the most recent ones in the last couple of years that we've talked about. I don't see any reason to follow that. I mean, now since we have last recorded too, speaking of epic long endurance events, there was a lady who just completed 366 days straight of a marathon. So last year was a leap year, so there was the extra day. So that's the reason for the 366. 366 days. And then there was a female that just won an epic ultra running race where it was over 3 days straight, 83 hours. And it's really interesting to see the females absolutely crushing these longer, crazy races and doing it at an older age. And the body's response is almost more beneficial for a female to take on these types of challenges too, it seems. So twisting Jenna's WTF into a more positive story. We had some pretty epic performances done correctly that we just haven't had a chance to talk about in the last couple of weeks. So
no,
yeah.
That is very cool. That is absolutely epic. And just the mental and physical fortitude to do stuff like that is unreal. That's very exciting to see. Well, we'll jump into a little bit of triathlon tea because we haven't had any racing to chat about the most recently, even though that is going to be kicking off very soon, like you said, with the WTCS, and we'll be jumping into the Ironman Pro Series T100 and everything else going on. But we'll start one of our triathlon tea that actually happened today was the Garmin outage. I started seeing it on Twitter X this morning that people were, anytime they're trying to start a workout that had GPS associated with it, their watch was basically defaulting to the Garmin kind of triangle screen and just getting frozen there and not moving. So a lot of athletes were seeing that across the world right now.
Yeah.
And man, when your Garmin doesn't cooperate, I mean, if you're looking to slack off today with your coach to say, oh, it was the Garmin outage, I didn't get it done.
completed, 45 minutes at the pool.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah, it's crazy to see an outage like that. We don't like Garmin's usually pretty solid, and it seems like such an odd thing that only if you use GPS,
yeah.
it'll get stuck in this route. So I know a lot of people are freaking out about that all day.
Yeah, my Garmin worked perfectly fine at the pool today. But if I was in Puerto Rico yesterday and this happened, it wouldn't have, because I was doing all GPS activities outside and had been for a week. So it was good timing being back in the winter, and Jen and I do a lot of indoor training this time of year. Not much GPS going forward. Maybe a couple runs here and there.
Yeah, actually, the weather turned it up for me for my birthday yesterday, and I got to run outside for the first time in a while, and it was very, very nice. But going back down to minus 25 later this week, so
yeah,
got a taste of the outside.
I believe it's probably snowing outside here right now too. So yeah, came home to snow, and luckily I'd asked somebody to plow my driveway. Other than that, not looking forward to it.
There we go. So another bit of news in the triathlon tea, we briefly mentioned it, Georgia Taylor Brown, who has definitely been a standout in the Super Tri and WTCS series. Sounds like she's switching up things next year to, again, take advantage of this year where Olympic points aren't really on the board and you can try something new. She's going to give cycling a go. So she was out training with the EF education team on their training camp for 10 days and getting a taste of what the pro cycling life looks like. And it sounds like she said, I don't really know. I might not see me in a triathlon. You might see me in a cycling race, but I'm just kind of doing what feels good. So be curious to see where she goes next year and what happens.
We're seeing more and more of it, right? And it's not just it actually is a lot of the Olympic athletes who have trained for 4 years for Paris, 3 years for Paris, coming off Tokyo in 2021. So there's a lot of that. There's the Alex E going for the London Marathon, and the 10K he just ran. Morgan Pearson just ran a 101.01 in Houston half marathon. Good for 15th place.
Yeah, he's disappointed by that. He's like, an average day.
Disappointed that he couldn't run a 59:17 American record. Which Connor Mantz did, who will be running Boston as well. So it is really, really cool to see these triathletes go after an individual sport as well, because that's where most of us got our start, and most of them got their start in one or two other sports, and to see what the body's capable of pushing. And it, at the end of the day, it's going to help their training overall, and it helps rejuvenate the mind and spirit. Like I've just been kind of just training and moving on. Like you said, there was no race actually confirmed. There was no A race coming up close, and I was coming off a niggle and an injury type fall and winter, and then I go to Puerto Rico and it just kind of rejuvenated everything. And the sea and the sun do that anyways. But changing up your routine does as well, and people talk about that all the time. And going and changing up triathlon's going to get you so far, but if you go change it into a cycling aspect or change it into a marathon type world, then that's always a good thing too for your mental health and keeping you excited about coming back to triathlon. So I think that's exactly what she's doing, and she's got the capability on the bike. We know she's a runner, right? So let's see what she can do on the bike.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'd love to hear more of her insights of how it goes if she does jump into some cycling races, because it's just such a different thing. You can be the fittest person in the world on a bicycle, but the whole peloton dynamics is something that is so drastically different from triathlons. So it'd be really cool to hear how she deals with that and what her experience is if she does do some of these bigger cycling races and get into that peloton race with EF Educational and just be a domestique or see what kind of rider she is. I know that's why Paula Findlay, she wanted to do like the time trials, and same with like Taylor Knibb. They were good at the time trials, but riding in that pack is so different that they didn't want to be in the road race in there. So it'd be cool to see her switched up, get into the cycling world, and just see what a triathlete can do in it, because we've definitely seen it in running.
We'll see if she's real serious about it if you start seeing her riding with Cam Werf or something.
There we go. Getting in there. Man, what's his season going to look like next year?
He signed up for every race. That'll be another interesting thing too, how Ironman handles that scheduling for their pros. Because that became a pretty big issue last year, because there were so many athletes who just signed up for all of them. in the Pro Series and protected their butts when they realized things were starting and lists were starting to close. So that will be interesting to see how that's handled this year.
Yeah, I wonder if they do have any new processes in place. Because I know, especially Texas, there were some big names that wanted to race it and couldn't get in because it was closed. And that kind of threw off the start of their Ironman series run. And a few of them decided not to do the Ironman Pro Series because they couldn't get into the first couple of races. So it's like, okay, now you're already on the back foot. So hopefully they've maneuvered around that a little bit better this year, or else everyone is just going to throw their names on everything from the start to be a lottery to get in.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. And I'm actually hoping I'm in conversations with this triathlon community that I just hung out with in Puerto Rico and their athlete and the young kids. You'd love this, Jenna. So we had my coach who had won 70.3 Puerto Rico last year. They all knew who she was, and they had, because she was the winner, they had invited her to give a quick talk to the kids. They had an open water swim competition, 1K, 3K, 5K, and on Saturday, and then Sunday was like the 10K. So after these kids did their triathlon practice Saturday morning, they came and sat down with her on the beach and picked her brain. And these were 7, 8, 10, 12-year-olds. And they were asking questions like, how do you even know, like asking her what her nutrition is for a certain training or what her strategy is in certain races. Like, I was blown away. And she had their attention for almost an hour. And these are just little kids sitting on a beach where they could just be playing and running around. It was really cool to see. And this is why I'm so happy to have been a part of this week and get to meet all these people. It'd be really cool to maybe have them or have somebody like that on the podcast one time, just talk about building a triathlon community and why they do it. And this guy quit his job and this is what he does full time now. So it'd be really cool. We'll see if we can make it work to get something like that on. It's off season time. So maybe a cool little interview and inspire some others to do something similar.
Yeah, definitely. That is very cool to hear. Well, we have another piece of news here with an American athlete, American Ironman champion, Andy Potts. He's been named coach of the US Paratriathlon team. So it's exciting to see he's officially retired. And
yeah, I didn't realize he hadn't retired. When that announcement came out.
That was my first.
Wow, Andy Potts retired. Really?
Yeah.
Again? Heck of a career, but I thought it was over a few years ago.
Yeah, he definitely. Well, it's kind of like the Craig Alexander way of it. I don't know if he ever really officially retired. He just raced for a long time and then.
Well, now the sport's becoming big enough that you actually have to officially retire. So that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah, so it'll be cool to see him bringing his years of experience to the paratriathlon team and help give them some insight into world-class performances. He's definitely had some incredible performances over the years with the 70.3 World Championships title and a number of Ironmans over the years. So it'd be cool to see what he does for that program.
And the US Paralympic team is already pretty high level too. So they had a great Paris and have really helped. So having a name like Andy Potts jump in at this point too is just, it speaks volumes to what they expect from that organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Josh, did you have anything else going on in the triathlon world that you wanted to chat about here?
No, I think we've covered everything. Again, not much going on in the actual racing world, and we're still able to cover almost an hour's worth of conversation. And obviously, we both had some pretty big training weeks, so that helped a lot as well.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I wanted to give a thank you and a shout out to Triathlete Magazine there. They had a rundown of the triathlon podcast in the industry right now. And I think we were appointed best one to help pass the time on the trainer. So appreciate the shout out there. And we're always happy just to geek out on triathlon.
Yeah, absolutely. And happy birthday to Jenna, one day late.
Thank you. Still in the same
age up yet, though. Still in minds.
It doesn't feel like a big birthday because I'm still in the same age group. We're right
Still
in the middle
same
of
age group. Got a couple of years to go.
There we go. Well, thank you very much. And until next week, we will chat again.
Awesome. See you guys.